makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
So, the inevitable happened a few days ago. Jordan Peterson, the Canadian reactionary psychologist turned global public intellectual, finally blocked me on Twitter. And it's probably been a long time coming. I must say I'm often quite aggressive on Twitter, though I don't insult or offend celebrities, precisely because I don't want to get blocked. You can still see their Twitter on like a private window, but I'd still, I follow these people because I want to see all the BS that they're spouting. So I'm not interested in getting deliberately blocked. But yeah, it finally happened. And this from, a paladin of free speech, a promoter of this marketplace of ideas, an eternal crusader against leftists who are destroying liberalism and Judeo-Christian values. But no, I was blocked. If you don't believe me, here's the screen, and I'm going to show you the tweet that got me banned, because it's actually probably his most fascist tweet ever, and my reply basically points that out. So that's the tweet. So he made two tweets, kind of back to back. And yeah, the alpha acts as healer in chief, comforting others in agony more than anyone else in the community. From a book called Mama's Last Hug, from Frans de Waal, a primatologist. And he's quoting his other tweet, which is Frans de Waal, one of the great primatologists. Most alpha males protect the underdog, keep the peace, and reassure those who are distressed. The expression of raw power isn't even the prime strategy for non-human social animals. So my response to that was, but you're not a fascist. Now, why did I write this? Because this is one of the most fascist things that he's ever written. First of all, he's basically taking these quotes out of context, because we actually don't know. I haven't read the book, but I kind of know who Frans de Waal is, and I'm going to show you a video at the end of this video. And I don't think that he's the kind of person who would be using this reference to alpha males protecting the weak as an excuse for what Jordan Peterson uses to justify hierarchies. And what he's using this quote for is basically to justify hierarchies on the basis that the strong can also protect the weak. And that's why we should allow the strong to continue dominating society, which is a very fascist thing to say, because Jordan Peterson's defense of hierarchies is what makes him so dangerous. And it's why I think he's among all this ecosystem of alt-right, alt-light, intellectual dark web pundits. I think Peterson is the most dangerous, because he promotes this idea, this fascist idea of hierarchies, of social dominance, in a very insidious way. He's not straightforward about what he really wants this tweet to be interpreted as, and that's what's really dangerous about it. And the worst part is that he's basically using a different species to humans to basically justify a political idea, which is absolutely ludicrous. And I'm going to show you a video of Jordan Peterson of how he defends hierarchies. Now, let me explain the left position on hierarchies, because he misconstrues this. Leftists don't think there shouldn't be hierarchies. Leftists simply believe that hierarchies cannot be self-justified. That is, every single hierarchy needs to be justified by people not in that or rather, not by the people at the top of that hierarchy, but at the people at the bottom of that hierarchy, should be the ones to say, hey, this hierarchy is legitimate, or it's not, right? And there's obviously this idea that like all hierarchies exist and that we're naturally wired to have hierarchies. Ultimately, the way that he defends this is in the sense that, well, yeah, there should be some restraints to it, but he never really explains what those restraints are. And so I want to explain this left position on hierarchy so that you'll see this video from Jordan Peterson himself and realize how he misuses this basic conflict on hierarchies between the left and the right. So let's watch.
One thing that I've been doing in my tour repeatedly, when I talk about the first chapter of my book, which is Stand Up Straight with Your Shoulders Back, it's a discussion of hierarchies and their eternal nature, right? Because my claim is, and it's not my claim, I think it's mere fact, that organisms that have to cooperate and compete with other organisms of their type inevitably arrange themselves into hierarchies, and that's been going on for so long, which is at least 300 million years, that our nervous systems have adapted to hierarchies as if they're a permanent element of being, right? More permanent than trees, like seriously permanent. The most fundamental neurochemical, the one that regulates the entire brain, serotonin, is acutely sensitive to hierarchical distinctions. And so that's part of the proposition. So the reason I laid that proposition forward was to say...
By the way, one of the major sort of alarm bells when you're trying to identify someone as a potential fascist is the use of science, or the misuse rather of science, to justify what are ultimately political or socioeconomic views. And this is one of the reasons why I think Peterson is really easy to spot, like his reliance on biology and science. And ultimately it's misapplied, because what is true for one species, and you know, he's famous for his lobster analogies, is not necessarily applicable for another species. So let's keep watching.
Whatever pitfalls hierarchies might produce, you cannot lay them at the feet of the West, patriarchy, or capitalism. It's like, that's a non-starter. You're wrong. And not just a little bit wrong. You're so seriously wrong that if you insist upon doing that, you won't even achieve your own aims, because you're actually not grappling with the problem. The problem is, if hierarchies are a problem, which they are, the problem is way more serious than mere capitalism. It's way deeper. And if you're actually interested in rectifying the negative consequences of hierarchies, then you're going to have to get a lot more sophisticated than your idiot Marxism. So
I love how he gets angry just talking about the left. His bias is so... he can't even control his own biases.
So part of the elaboration of that argument is, well, hierarchies are inevitable because we have to solve complex problems and we have to solve them socially. And when you implement a solution to a complex problem socially, you produce a hierarchy because some people are better at the implementation than others. So there's a hierarchy of competence, and then there's a hierarchy of distribution of the spoils. And in both of those hierarchies, you get a disproportionate clumping of resources at the top and dispossession at the bottom.
So note how now he's justifying inequality, basically, like all right-wingers do. The idea that, well, we clearly have a society where people are smarter or more capable or whatever, and, well, they're going to reap the rewards. But then he doesn't question, like, what is a fair distribution of those rewards? Should we live in a society where the winner takes all and the rest basically just starve to death? When we could live in a society that even the worst off have some minimum level of standard of living. He doesn't address that. So he's only concerned about this sort of bigger conceptual issue of, well, are hierarchies justified? Well, yes, because biology and they're inevitable, and they're, you know, for millions of years we've had hierarchy. So what can you do about it? There's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, we can do many things about it.
It's in the nature of hierarchies. So what's the left for? The left is to remind those who are benefiting from the hierarchies that the hierarchy comes at a cost. And the cost is the clumping of people at the bottom. And that's an eternal cost, and it's not trivial. And so that's what the left should be properly focused on. The left should be providing the voice of those who are dispossessed by hierarchies. And the right should be
But that kind of is what the left does. So why does he hate the left so much?
saying, yeah, but the damn hierarchies are necessary. And they're not only necessary, but they're also productive. Then the left says, yes, but they tilt towards tyranny.
But then that's also not what the right does. The right justifies the hierarchy so that then the hierarchy can be even stronger. And that gap between the haves and the have-nots can be even bigger. I mean, I'll give you an example. So in the 1970s, the ratio of CEO pay to median pay was about 20. And it was like that through most of the post-war era. And then from the 70s onward, it started skyrocketing. And right now, it's about, in the US, it's over 300. So it's increased by over 10 times. And, well, that's an expression of hierarchy, right? Because a CEO is at the top of the hierarchical pyramid of a corporation, which is the main agent of economic production in the capitalist world, and even in the non-capitalist world. So how does Jordan Peterson address this fact? Are we justifying the idea that a company needs a CEO? I don't think most leftists would argue that. The complaint is why on earth CEOs earn that much more than they used to. Is 320-something times the median pay, is that really legitimate? Is that fair? The question is not whether the CEO exists. It's whether they have that much more power. And actually, the right is not interested in just saying like, well, hierarchies are necessary. The right today doesn't say, oh, we need CEOs. That's not what they're arguing. The right is arguing that 320 or 10 or 30, I don't remember exactly the number. It's slightly over 300. That's maybe not enough, because if it was 400, if it was 500, it would still be justified. That's what the right does. So he's completely trivializing both the role of both of the left in terms of what they should be doing, but also he's making the right look far more benevolent than it actually is. The right has always wanted to increase their power as a hierarchy, and the left has not just been there to argue whether hierarchies should exist or not, but how much power do they have, and in some cases certainly whether they are justified or not. But I don't think that's like an issue with most hierarchies. I'll give you another example: the military. I don't think anyone in their right minds thinks that a military should not have a hierarchy. Why? Because in the heat of battle, you don't want to suddenly have, a public consultation between the NCOs and the junior officers on what the hell, how are you going to assault the enemy trench? There's clearly a need for a top-down approach, right? But even then, there are benefits from sort of loosening that strict hierarchies. The German army, for example, in World War II was very effective on a tactical level because their junior officers and their NCOs were trained to do the duties of the position above them. So when their superior was killed, and this happened very frequently in the last years of the war, they would immediately have someone who would step up. And it would like fighting a German unit in the battlefield was something like killing a worm. You could cut the worm, but then you'd end up with, multiples of that worm, and they were very, very difficult to defeat. Whereas in other armies that were much more rigid in their hierarchies, like for example the British Army, where the officer corps was very aristocratic and had little to identify with the lower ranks, the British Army would, if they got seriously mauled on the battlefield, they had no idea what to do. So even in the single most hierarchical organization that we have, which is the military, even loosening that hierarchy has benefits. So, Jordan. Let's keep watching.
And they can be occupied inappropriately by people who are playing games of power. Fair enough, the right has to take that into account. The hierarchy can rigidify and is likely to do that, and it can be taken over by people who are corrupt, and that's likely to happen. And so, but it's okay because the dialogue can work out. The right can say, well, yeah, we need the damn hierarchies and they need to be buttressed, and the left can say, yes, but they have to be maintained properly so they don't deteriorate and degenerate. And I think that's...
Who do you think? So he's also assuming that in this deliberation between both sides, one doesn't have overwhelming power over the other. Like, in what company that isn't unionized or doesn't have worker representation can workers go up and say, hey, CEO, you guys, we agree you should exist because it's kind of cool to have a CEO who kind of lays the strategy of the firm and whatnot. But we don't think you should earn that much. We think we deserve a bit more. Where does this happen? It doesn't happen. He's completely avoiding discussing the power relations between the left and the right. And by and large, the left is completely powerless in many aspects of social deliberation. So it's insane that this guy's taken seriously.
I think that's ancient wisdom. I think the ancient Egyptians had figured that out in their symbolic representations.
Egypt, yeah, what a great example of like a deliberate, a society based on deliberation between unequal sides. Right, yeah, that's just fantastic. The pharaoh always wanted to be challenged in his authority and be told by his minions why his godlike power maybe should be slightly less godlike. Maybe you're not a god, you're just a demigod. Yeah, I'm sure that every pharaoh wanted to hear that. Oh my God, what a clown. This is insane.
So now, when the left goes too far, it does something like say, well, how about no hierarchies? It's like, no, how about not? Wrong.
The left doesn't say that. No one says that. I mean, even a communist, I'm talking someone who like believes in a stateless society, that, communitarian organization should be the norm of social and economic relations. Still, even in that society, you would have some hierarchies. They would develop naturally, but they would be controlled, they would be regulated, because no one would be given that much power over others. So this is crazy. Like, he's completely mischaracterizing the left's position on hierarchies. And he does this on purpose, because obviously what he wants to paint the left as is basically, these crazy campus activists who just want to destroy all forms of authority, all forms of hierarchy. And maybe there are anarchists who think that. But most socialists, I don't think, go that far. I know for a fact, I wouldn't go that far. I do think that we need hierarchies in society. They just need to be legitimate. And like I said, the issue is not whether hierarchies should exist or not, but how much power they have. We don't need to be in a society where there aren't any CEOs. We need those CEOs to earn a fair share. That's what we need to do.
Because all that happens one of the things that happens if you flatten out the hierarchy is that you can't even organize your perceptions. You can't perceive the world without looking at the world through a hierarchy of value. And because you can't perceive the world unless you make one thing more important than all the other things, because you don't even know what to look at. And if one thing isn't more important than all the other things, then you have nothing to aim at. If you have nothing to aim at, then you have no meaning in your life. So the left can't just demolish the hierarchies in the name of some equality of outcome, let's say, because you blow out the future, you leave people aimless, and you destroy the very institutions that allow people to make competent progress in the world.
Okay, so here's another example. Like, when I say that we don't need to abolish all hierarchies because some of them are legitimate, here's an example of one that isn't legitimate. And that would be one that he really hates, which is patriarchy. There is no single reason that I can think of why a patriarchal society needs to exist. You can't think of a reason for this. Because, yes, perhaps women might tend to gravitate towards certain jobs. Men tend to gravitate towards other jobs. But even then, like, the reason that we've wanted to say bring women into science and technology, or bring women into politics or things like that, is precisely because we realize that a patriarchal society cannot legitimize itself, right? And this argument that he gives, which is basically just like word salad, honestly. Like, a lot of what Jordan Peterson says is meant to make him sound smarter than he is. And it fools a lot of his followers who basically, you know, follow him as like a father figure. Like, he's definitely a daddy figure. And a lot of people have made jokes about this. But it's true. It is a bit of a cult around him. And part of it is because he speaks in these terms that are basically just, you know, psychobabble.
That's not an acceptable outcome. So we have to agree to live with the tension. Necessity for hierarchies, the proclivity for them to pathologize, and the necessary voice of the left in speaking for the dispossessed.
So again, no conception whatsoever of the imbalance of power between those sides. He just assumes that this is like a natural deliberation between two equal partners, and that's not the case. So I don't really know what else to add about this, but if you think about the people who defend hierarchies and why I called them out as a fascist in that tweet that got me blocked, it's because fascists construct their worldviews based on the self-legitimizing nature of the hierarchies that they choose. So there are racial hierarchies. There are gender hierarchies, obviously, because the Nazis were an incredibly gender stratified society. In fact, one of the reasons why they lost World War II and why they were outproduced by the Allies is because they refused women to work in factories until very late in the war, which the liberal democracies at the time, like from day one that they mobilized, they immediately conscripted the men and put the women to work in, Rosie the Riveter and things like that. They did that from the start, and they outproduced Germany. Even Britain, that didn't have like the massive industrial power of the US, for example, outproduced Germany in every year until 1944. So even like if Nazi society was built around the concept of creating the perfect war machine, even their hierarchies failed them. They lost because of this. And then, of course, it's the very reason why these fascist societies are so militaristic, because there's also a hierarchy of nations that they feel superior to others, that it is the destiny of Germany to dominate Europe. It is the destiny of Italy to dominate the Mediterranean, the Mare Nostrum, as they called it, or the Japanese, who felt that they needed to dominate the Pacific. This is all this is why he's a fascist. This is the tweets that justify why Jordan Peterson is a fascist, because he's using or misusing science to create this idea of all hierarchies being benevolent. And that's exactly what the Nazis did. And anyway, one would read this and wonder what Frans de Waal's real views about fairness and inequality are if Jordan Peterson's going to tweet him. And it's a bit of a shame that now he blocked me, because I would have actually rather responded with this video that I only remembered later. But this is an experiment that you might have seen. So he's had a TED Talk, and I recalled that this was very widely shared at the time. It went viral, and I'm pretty sure you've all seen this or heard of this experiment, but I didn't realize it was actually Frans de Waal. So it's quite fitting that now I'm going to show this and show you what monkeys really think about inequality.
So a final experiment that I want to mention to you is our fairness study. And so this became a very famous study, and there's now many more, because after we did this about 10 years ago, it became very well known. And we did that originally with capuchin monkeys, and I'm going to show you the first experiment that we did. It has now been done with dogs, and with birds, and with chimpanzees. But with Sarah Brosnan, we started out with capuchin monkeys. So what we did is we put 2 capuchin monkeys side by side. Again, these animals, they live in a group. They know each other. We take them out of the group, put them in a test chamber. And there's a very simple task that they need to do. And if you give both of them cucumber for the task, the 2 monkeys side by side, they're perfectly willing to do this 25 times in a row. So cucumber, even though it's really only water in my opinion, but cucumber is perfectly fine for them. Now, if you give the partner grapes, the food preferences of my capuchin monkeys correspond exactly with the prices in the supermarket. And so if you give them grapes, that's a far better food, then you create inequity between them. So that's the experiment we did. Recently, we videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber, and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
There you go. That's his champion of this fascist alpha male philosophy, which he's clearly misusing, is actually an egalitarian. He's actually using these studies on monkeys to prove that they have a concept of economic fairness. And I'm sure Jordan Peterson isn't going to use that video in any way, but rather he'll just cherry pick these bits. And I would really would love to see, like, this, knowing Jordan Peterson, I'm sure he just took this completely out of context. I'm sure there was more written about this than what he's describing there. But this is, if you look at the replies to his videos, this is all his fans are these, very insecure alpha male wannabe types. Those are the people who, like look at this guy. Number 4 attribute of the alpha male, affection. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, and this guy is a freaking, I coach CEOs and venture capitalists. I maximize masculinity and health. Look at these clowns. This is the people who he attracts with this bullshit. Look at this. Maximus tribe. Jesus Christ. Like, there's an entire ecosystem of these insane, like, I don't even know how to describe them. These are betas. I'm sorry. These are, if you need that, like, your daddy figure of Jordan Peterson to give you all your knowledge and all your confidence, you're a beta. I'm sorry. As Jesse Lee Peterson would say, beta. This is, I love this. I'm going to link the tweet bit here in my description, because this account, Feminist Next Door, makes some really good replies to some of these douchebags. Like this one, like, dominance breeds benevolence. What the fuck is this shit? It's true. The more power you give to one group, the less benevolent it's gonna become. And the irony is that these people are probably all also, like, free market fundamentalists or libertarians or ANCAPs or something. They never use the same logic for the state, right? Like, they would never argue, oh, well, we should have a stronger state. because it will be a benevolent one. No. So, yeah, this is just, is sad. It's really sad. Honestly, it's really sad. Yeah, like this one, a great image. The healer in chief that also needs a ready sword. It is what is needed in this age of partiality. Why does a healer need a ready sword? It's insane. I'm sorry. I really think that if you're a Jordan Peterson fan, I'll be straight up. Get help. Seriously, get help. He is not good for you. He's not good for your brain. He's not good for your soul. He's not good for the relationships that you have around you. I know people who have literally divorced because the hubby started getting into Jordan Peterson, and it basically started destroying all the relationships around them. This man is toxic in every sort of way. And if you find anything in common with what he says, you're not becoming a better person. Like, you might think that you become a better person because his self-help guides of, making your bed every day and standing up straight might make you feel empowered. And maybe it will temporarily get you out of a hole that you might be in. But it's not going to make you a better person in the long run. So I'm going to still criticize Jordan Peterson because I can still see his Twitter feed on a private Firefox window. So it doesn't really matter that he blocked me. I'm not shedding a tear, but I just found it really funny that this quote, which my comment, which I don't think was like that egregious, was the reason that I got blocked. So yeah, kudos to this paladin of free speech and free expression. But yeah, don't follow Jordan Peterson, please. If you've gotten into that hole, get help. Seriously, get help. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, please share, and most importantly, please subscribe. And I will see you next time.